Hello, BookTube. I've got some mail for you today on the last day of September. Boy, that caught up with me. I kept thinking, I don't know why, but all through the 20s of the month, I kept thinking, yeah, sooner or later, maybe sometime next week, the month's going to end. But no, it ends right away. It's ending right away. Uh, I got a few periodicals in the mail and also a couple of packages, so it won't take us long. It need not be a 40-minute video. The first periodical that I got in the mail, I'm very glad that I got in the mail so that I didn't forget that I subscribed to it and buy it on the newsstand, and that was the next issue of The Nation. I bought a copy of The Nation at Barnes & Noble just the other day, and because it looked, oh, this looks interesting, it's got such book coverage, and then the next day my subscription copy arrived. This one has some interesting books coverage in the back. I have yet to read any of the stuff at the beginning, the political stuff. I will. But the two main reviews that caught my attention in the back. One I have. We've seen it already. The Dawn of Everything. They got a nice long review here from Daniel Imawar, who I like, who appears to think more highly of the book than I did. Maybe I'll have to give it a reread when I get the finished copy. And then I will certainly give it a reread when I get the finished copy. And then the other thing that was of interest to me is something that I just heard about. The review is by Jennifer Wilson, and the book is The Life of Permafrost, A History of Frozen Earth in Russian and Soviet Science by Pei-Yi Chu from the University of Toronto, which I have not received. I'm going to have to see if the University of Toronto is willing to fling one in my direction, because I'd like to read it. But that was the Nation. And then the other periodical that I got was The New Yorker. With this rather lovely books-oriented cover. I have no idea. The cover is by Kenton Nelson, and it's called American Vernacular for reasons that really elude me. I don't really know why you would call this American Vernacular. And I went through it. It has the usual array of cartoons and whatnot, and articles. And I haven't read everything, but I went straight to the back of the issue to read about this guy. Because the New Yorker becomes, I think, the third major publication that I've seen so far that has a big, huge spread on Jonathan Franzen's new novel, Crossroads. This one is by Catherine Schultz, and it drove me insane. Just drove me insane. And I want to give you a little taste of why that is. I want to read to you two different parts from this review. Both of them in the wind-up. Both of them when the reviewer is kind of sort of concluding. After having described the book in unsavory length. Yet here is the thing about Crossroads. When I got to that unsatisfying ending, I found myself irritated less by its shortcomings than by the fact that I couldn't read those other volumes right away, the other volumes in the series, the first book of the series. The experience brought to mind E.M. Forster's maxim about the novel, quote, qua story, it can only have one merit, that of making the audience want to know what happens next. By that metric, Crossroads plainly succeeds, yet that metric does not distinguish Jonathan Franzen from James Patterson. Still, the two are plainly distinct, which raises the question of what, other than suspense, makes Franzen's new novel so compelling. That's tricky to answer because what's true of ethics is also true of aesthetics. Certain forms of goodness are strangely elusive. And Franzen, more than most contemporary writers of his caliber, operates in this covert mode almost exclusively. In the years since the publication of The Corrections, his prose has grown looser and laxer. Never a showy author, he now sometimes scarcely seems like a good one. He has become so assertively styleless. My God. He has become so assertively styleless that he appears to have deemed linguistic pleasure not only inferior to, but anathema to, all other literary aims. Whole chapters, almost whole books, go by without a beautiful line or arresting image. Yet I still remember the description from The Corrections of thunderstorms piling up across the Midwest, quote, like big spiders in a little jar. And I miss the writer who conjured that vision. Unlike Perry, the character in the new novel, in other words, Franzen does not always seem to be doing the best he can. That impression is enhanced by the unmistakable fact that, from time to time, he just towers over his own work. I just don't mean that The Corrections was the best of his novels. I mean that at some point within each novel he demonstrates full, show-stopping range of what he's capable of doing. My God. that is just about Olympic level critic doublespeak. This author, this critic, Catherine Schultz, is outright telling you that Crossroads is a boring, flat novel. A novel that displays no authorly virtuosity at all. She's outright telling you that, and yet she's somehow trying to convince herself through some sort of twister logic that makes it all the greater. That makes it all the more great because he is assertively styleless. Good Lord. If we are saying the writing flat, boring, disinterested, disconnected prose, totally jaded, boring, left-hand exercise prose, is suddenly a demonstration of how masterly an author is, then we're lost. Absolutely lost. And we get to the end of the review. She blathers on for quite some time. After saying that, after outright telling you what is true, which is that Crossroads is boring, which means it is a failure. That means it fails. But she goes on for quite some time after that, and then she concludes this way. Unbelievable. Crossroads is an imperfect novel that is nonetheless a great one. Its inner operations lofting it high above its flaws. Only the rest of the trilogy can tell whether the same will hold for any of its characters. Throughout the book, Franzen fixes his gaze on bad decisions, bad faith, and incremental settings in motion of disaster. Ultimately, though, he seems more invested in what happens after all those calamitous choices are made, in their practical consequences, but also in who offers forgiveness and who withholds it when it will do good, when it will be to good has failed. In other words, what she's saying is only the rest of the trilogy can tell us whether the same will hold true for any of the characters, and hold true means great, despite their flaws. Which, it's difficult. I don't engage in reviewer speak, and I don't like it. I do make a kind of a field study of it, but even I am having a hard time trying to figure out what the hell this reviewer is saying. It sounds almost like she's saying, we'll need 2 more books to know whether or not the characters in this book are any good, whether or not they were made any good, whether or not they were written any good. That we'll need the next 2 books in this trilogy to know whether or not this first book is any good. But how can the next 2 books in this trilogy be anything but great? How can they fail? If you've already said that an author doing an ostentatiously bad, boring, jaded, disinterested job can still be great. that you're saying, well, it's a great, he actually is a great stylist. He's just making a point by being assertively styleless. If you're already willing to grant an author that, then A, your criticism is no use to anybody, and B, that author can literally do no wrong. So who cares what the next 2 books are like? I am perfectly happy to step in and tell you that Crossroads was terrible. It was even worse than I thought it would be, and I'm no fan of Franzen, I admit that, but I always leave out hope that an author I'm no fan of will surprise me, will overjoy me. That happens on a regular basis, at least 2 or 3 times a year, every year of my life. That happens. This thing, you'll take what I give you. You'll take the slop in the pan that I give you, and you'll like it. You'll not only like it, you'll praise it everywhere at great length. And it's true. We've already seen that it's true. The Nation ran a long review. I'm sure that the London Review, they won't speak to me, but I'm sure they'll run a long review of it. Every place will run a long review of this thing. And I would say, okay, of course they're going to do that. He's one of the foremost novelists of the age. Of course they're going to do that. But it's there in the book as well. It's not just that the critical world is going to do that because everybody's going to want to know about the new Franzen. It's that it's there in the book. Yeah, you'll take whatever thin gruel I dish out to you, and you'll lap it up. The book just glows with contempt. Okay, all right, fine. So those were the 2 periodicals, but there's one other periodical that came in the mail, and it does not disappoint in any way. Not in any way. And it encourages the buying of multiple copies, unlike The Nation. And that is Smoke Signals. Big Canoe News in northern Georgia. A full-color, gigantic newspaper, many, many sections. This is not just a local newspaper at all. It's got many, many sections that look all over the place and that have all sorts of great opinion pieces, a great local color, great meditations on things, full color photos everywhere, and a dedicated book section. In the back of the news section of every issue of Big Canoe News is a dedicated book section. Not arts, not the latest movie reviews rolled in, just books. 2 full pages of books coverage, and that section is mine. I am the editor of that section. Look at how beautiful this is. Just look at that. Can you make that out? Okay. Look at how beautiful that is. You get a column for coming attractions, and then a bunch of book reviews. Just a bunch of them on all different subjects. You've got history, you've got economics, you've got paleo history, that biography of Robert E. Lee, all the major, not all, but a handful of carefully chosen major releases for the month in which the paper appears. Every month you get that. Just incredible. Such an amazing thing to see this arrive on the doorstep. Just amazing. Just gaze at this all over again, will you? Just look at it. Just look at how beautiful that is. Good Lord. And that is me. That is my book section. I am the book section editor of Big Canoe News. And if you go to the website, which I list down below, as always, if you go to the website, you can read the whole paper. You can read the whole of the book section. I think if I'm getting the paper, what is this? This is the September paper. If I'm getting the September paper, then it must be up already on the website. You can read that for free. There's no paywall. Or if you want to get the glory of the full-color wad of a paper and dropped on your doorstep, you could subscribe. $30 a year will get you 1 paper a month. That is, well, I'm a little bit biased, but it's the best book section anywhere in the Deep South, in any newspaper, including some newspapers that are 100, almost 200 years older than Smoke Signals, some newspaper sections that have a great deal more money than Big Canoe News. It is the best book section of any print newspaper anywhere in the Deep South. In fact, the only competition that it has is the Washington Post. And that is only because the Washington Post is rumored to have a little more money than Big Canoe News does. If Big Canoe News, if Smoke Signals were to have, for instance, a weekly schedule instead of a monthly schedule, or if Smoke Signals were, in addition to a weekly schedule, if we were to have a weekend pull-out book section of 10,000 words total, in addition to weekly reviews, then there would be no competition anywhere in the American South. So, but you don't have to love the American South. You don't have to live in the American South. You don't have to live in northern Georgia to subscribe to Big Canoe News, and it is always going to be the best periodical that I get in the mail. Always puts a huge smile on my face. But then we have packages as well. 2 of these little white packages, so probably not a lot to expect. Probably advanced copies of things that come out next year. There are no big boxes this time, no nothing like that. Okay, yes, this first one is going to be a hardcover in January. This is My Annihilation by Fuminori Nakamura, whose books we have seen on this channel. I've reviewed, I reviewed The Thief, I reviewed Cult X, and I reviewed The Gun, and I have never liked anything that this author has written, that I've read in English. I've never liked anything of it. So let's see what this one, this is My Annihilation, with the requisite hideous American cover. This is translated from the Japanese by Sam Bett, and let's see here. In this mystifying novel, Nakamura scours and lays bare the psychological motives of a killer, crafting a puzzle box of a narrative comprised of confessional journal entries, clever shifts in timeline and perspective, and original psychoanalysis of real Japanese serial killers. My Annihilation begins with an ominous sense of urgency that never lets up as a cryptic narrator prepares to assume the identity of a man named Ryodai Kazuka by reading diary pages that reveal a deeply disturbed mind. What follows is an intricately layered revenge story that dissects the framework of identity and memory to answer the questions: what turns someone into a killer? Could it be something as small as a suggestion? Okay, well, this is the advanced copy. The finished copy comes out in hardcover in the middle of January. So I don't need to think about it. I have a feeling that's what both of these things are going to be. They're going to be things that advance copies for the new year. And I'm not reading anything from 2022 and 2021. So let's see if I'm right. Let's see if this next one is also the same thing. And then we'll be done. Now that I've given you the full sales pitch on Smoke Signals, we'll be done. Let's see here. Yes, this is also this is from FSG. This also comes out in mid-January. This is Call Me Cassandra by Martial Gala. Martial Gala. Call Me Cassandra. Translated from the Spanish by Anna Kushner. 10-year-old Rauli lives in a world that is often hostile. His older brother is violent. His philandering father doesn't understand him. His intelligence and sensitivity do not endear him to the other children at school. He loves to read, especially Greek myths, but in Cuba in the 1970s, novels and gods can be dangerous. Despite the signs that warn Rauli to repress and fear what he is, he knows three things to be true. First, that he was born in the wrong body. No idea how you could know that. Second, that he will die, aged 18, as a soldier in the Cuban intervention in Angola. How will he know that either? And third, that he is the reincarnation of the Trojan princess Cassandra. Okay, well then, all right, so we're dealing in unknowns. Okay, that redeems it. That's funny then. Moving between Rowley's childhood and adolescence, between the Angolan battlefield, the city of Cienfuegos, and the shores of ancient Troy, this novel tells of the search for identity amid the collapse of Cuba's utopian dreams. Burdened with the knowledge of tragedies yet to come. Oh, so Rowley does know a bit of the future. Interesting. Rowley nonetheless strives to know himself. Lyrical and gritty, heartbreaking and luminous, Rowley's is the story of an inexorable pull of destiny. And the author is a novelist, a poet, and an architect from Cuba. And he splits his time between Buenos Aires and Cienfuegos. So when did this come out? I'm curious to know. 2019. This came out in 2019. Okay, but it comes out in its English language translation in the middle of January. So it sounds intriguing, but once again, it's not on my calendar at all. So we have two works in translation. First of all, that's fantastic that we get two works in translation. That's great. I'm always happy to see them, but they don't even slightly intrigue me yet. You know, the usual patter that I say about how the mail haul often informs the TBR for that night, that is not going to happen in this case just as well, since I have a lot of other things to read. So that is it. 2 books, 2 periodicals, and Big Canoe News. With, shall we look at it one more time? Its big, glorious, full-color book section, edited by yours truly. Big, glorious, full-color book section. You've got the Peter Ackroyd, you've got the Adam Tooze, you've got that book on therapsids, you've got a book on The Last Viking, a review of The Last Viking. Oh, how wonderful. How wonderful. Such a thrill to get a print newspaper that you are in charge of. Not in charge of the whole newspaper, thank God, but I'm in charge of the book section. And to see the book section delivered to my doorstep as a realized reality. You know, when you're collating all of these different pieces and you're working out all the different page length or column lengths and whatnot, you've got a ceiling to work against. You're wondering if you're going to have an ad poach some space, or you're wondering if a certain visual is the right size. Can it be made to fit in the right corner? When all of that stuff, when you're doing all of that stuff to make an issue, it doesn't feel real. It feels urgent, but it doesn't feel real. But when you get it in the mail, when it shows up on your doorstep, then it feels real. So there you go. That's the mail of a few periodicals. One that I know backwards and forwards. The odd thing about the book section of Smoke Signals is I don't ever need to read it because I already know everything that's in it. And 2 books, 2 works in translation that don't come out until next year. So I'm going to wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, Book 2.